It's always interesting to me when we get these sort of requests to do for quick lists, and I haven't done many recently, so I thought, you know what? People want to talk about the best episodes of Simpsons or Family Guy that are out there. I'm kind of up for it because I haven't watched a lot of Family Guy recently. No, not more than, I didn't fall off when they killed Brian, but anyway. So, there are a lot of great episodes, obviously, from throughout the history of this show. There are a huge, vast volume of episodes from throughout the history of this show. I've watched maybe not every single one, but pretty damn close, I'd say. I caught back up fairly well about a year ago, so I'm fairly up to date. I feel like I've watched through at least the first 10 seasons a couple of times every episode and know it well enough to say, yeah, you know what? We all know, big fans of the show. We all know, first couple of seasons generally crap. There was a couple of episodes in the second season that really started showing what it could be. And then it kind of, for me, I think it was the best it's ever been or going to be, probably. Seasons, I'd say 8 to 10. Those are my favourites. But let's talk about this. The 10 best episodes of Family Guy ever. Obviously, we start with number 10, The Blue Harvest. Blue Harvest is the first of the 3 episodes. They did the full trilogy of Star Wars parodies, and the first one is, I think it's the best. It's kind of like talking about the Star Wars trilogy itself. Do you prefer Empire, or do you prefer A New Hope? It's like, do you prefer Blue Harvest, or do you prefer something Dark Side? No, that's literally the episode title. I didn't include that one, and I did include this one, and I think it's so deeply ingrained in the pop culture references it's making this episode that it's not one of my very, very, it's not breaking through into the upper echelons of my top 10 personally, but it is something that is super memorable. It's one of the very best parody kind of things they've done, and it just worked so cleanly and so well. It was such a good episode, and so much of what it made fun of was so on point. It just felt like it worked really, really well. Number 9, Meet the Quagmires. Yeah, this is another pretty much full-on parody episode, which is maybe a reason why I can't leave it out of the top 10 because it is so excellent. This one's from season 5, and it was basically Back to the Future. Peter went back to his prom night and didn't get with Lois, and then she got with Quagmire. Don't know how in God's name that happened, but it kind of, this episode does play with the idea of Quagmire being a nice guy. If he'd had that security from that time, if he'd had that relationship. It's a really weird idea, because he's not a good guy. he's not a good guy. Almost nobody in this show is a good person, but that's fine. And the whole thing is then that Peter goes back to the present, but now all the children have Quagmire's chin, and they're married, and it's actually a very well done, interesting episode again. It takes the parody elements and makes an interesting story of its own out of them, but it is still focused a lot in those pop culture references and these elements that it's taken from Back to the Future. So I couldn't put it right near the top of the top 10, but it is a great episode. Number 8, it's kind of it's a little bit cheaty because I didn't want this to have to take 2 spots, and it is kind of these season openers. They do a lot of them. This one was from season 6. It's Stewie kills Lois / Lois kills Stewie. They are separate episodes. They're not really a part 1, part 2, but it is a continuing story, so it really is a part 1, part 2, so we're just going to get it as a part 1, part 2. Season 6 for me is when the show really started to get really good. I think if I had to stretch it out more broadly, 6 to 10 is... it's just all great stuff, really. And Stewie finally kind of fulfilling the dream of killing Lois, and then finding out he hasn't, then taking over the world, and it was all so good. And this did take a lot of tropes from different things, from revenge thrillers, but it was done so well, to such a weirdly almost epic degree. It took that real whoa, big time action angle with it, and it actually worked really well. I thought it was really cool as a kind of 2-part-ish episode. I thought it was just phenomenal. Number 7 is one of the, 3 or 4 cases on this list where we're just talking about Brian and Stewie episodes, because nobody can deny how good Brian and Stewie episodes are, right? And there were a couple more that I left off this list that are pretty close. They're kind of in my top 15, I'd say, not quite in the top 10. This one is from season 9, I think. It's Road to the North Pole. One of the best things about Brian and Stewie episodes is the ridiculous musical numbers you get, and Christmas Time is Killing Us is just genius. I loved that. That was so good. And it was right at the beginning of the episode. It set the tone for this depressed Santa and all the elves, and it's just a nightmare zone, the North Pole. It's phenomenal. It's such a good time. And Brian and Stewie, I don't know what it is, the way these characters bounce off each other, they nail it every time. I mean, I'm trying to think, like Road to Germany? I'm trying to think of like one of these episodes that isn't quite on that like top tier level, because most of the Road to episodes are always just major hits. They're so good. And Road to the North Pole is it's so great, and it's something that I really try to remember. One of those TV special episodes that you try to remember to stick on every year at Christmas, because it's just so worth watching around that time of year. And number 6, it's another major kind of crossover event episode. They really go all out, not so much for season finales, but for season openers with Family Guy. And I think this is maybe one of the very few episodes I put on the list from post season 10, because I really am. I think season 6 to 10 are where the majority of these episodes are coming from for me in this list. But season 15's opener was the Simpsons Guy. And I mean, it was such a coke dream of an episode. You just couldn't imagine it was ever actually going to happen. It just seemed mad. But it did happen. It was actually that cracked and amazing and just crazy to watch. And it felt like it felt like it needed almost to be a film, you know, like a cinematically released film, because it was just such a big, crazy, weird deal. I think the fact that it happened is half the reason it's on the list. The other half is because in that one episode, they really managed to nail it and just make it that good. Fred Flintstone is the judge at the trial. That whole thing, it really was that amazing to watch. And yeah, it's maybe slightly generous putting it that high up the list, but frankly, I feel like it's got the crazy kind of, what the hell, how did this actually happen, rewatchability to it, that I love it more and more each time I watch it, that episode. At number 5, and I don't think other people might rate this as highly, but I loved the fact that just one time in season 8, for a Brian and Stewie episode called Brian and Stewie, they just didn't do any of the normal stuff the show would do. There was not a single cutaway gag. These were the only 2 characters in it. Brian and Stewie get locked in a bank vault over the weekend, and they just sit there and talk and confront each other, and it actually is like, it is still mostly a comedy episode, but there's a lot of like serious things and moments and things in this that you go, what is this still Family Guy? And it's crazy. And it's such a good episode, and it is so unique in its style, because they never make TV like that with this show. They just don't do it. So it was a unique experience, and it's incredible to watch back. It's like the Brooklyn Nine-Nine episode, where it's just them interrogating a guy the whole time. It's one of those unique shut-in style episodes that really uses the shut-in concept unbelievably well. So good. Number 4 is PTV. And I think this is another season 8 episode that just, I mean, Family Guy's got a weird relationship with censors on TV, but this episode just went balls to the wall with that, and had the censor people coming and tried to censor their real lives after Peter started his own TV station where nothing was off limits, and it was so tongue-in-cheek and kind of fourth wall breaky, and it was so beautiful to watch. And it's one of those episodes that's just Peter going absolutely mad, but it's probably my favorite one of those ever. It's so good. I loved it so much, and it's still it's just so amazing to watch back today, and it's always going to be relevant. That's that style of problem that they have with the censors, you know. And it's not just their show, it's all shows. Less so on Netflix, I feel. They go more crazy weird with their adult animated shows and things. Yeah, they let more weird stuff happen, and I'm not sure that works out too well. Number 3 is the episode that I don't think it was like the first episode of Family Guy I ever saw, but I Dream of Jesus from season 7, or the Bird is the Word episode, is it's probably the episode that I first watched and went, oh my god, I actually actively love this show. I kind of liked Family Guy well enough, and then I saw this one and I went, oh my god, it's actually so good, isn't it? Peter literally finds Jesus in this episode, which is ironic, but he finds him working in a record shop. He loves this song, the classic Bird is the Word song. It's so good. It's so good. And then he just starts bursting out singing all over the place. Jesus, what goes after like the president, and it's a whole thing. But it's actually, it's just so beautiful. And no matter how many times I rewatch it, which is a lot, probably almost more than with any Family Guy episode, I still just think, God, yeah, I really, that is what made me fall in love with this show. So I'm always going to think of it as one of my very top favorite episodes. And plus, I started really loving that song after hearing it in this. Like, genuinely, not ironically, it's just so much fun. Yeah, I can't stop myself. Number 2, and this is what a lot of people would put as their number 1. It's kind of the obvious, if you go to one of these lists online, number 1. It keeps popping up. It's the best Brian and Stewie episode, I think, beyond a doubt. It's Road to the Multiverse. Season 8 opener. And again, just their openers are just so good. And it was so phenomenal. It took so many different art styles. It was such a amalgamation of so many different things. The pop culture references were so on point. The Disney scene. Oh my God. I'll still just, like, every so often go, oh, hell yeah, and look that up on, like, YouTube. Just watch that clip, because it's so funny. And all of this episode it's the perfect Brian and Stewie episode. It took so many references, so many great moments, so many funny character things, and just made it all work so well. And it laughs at itself as well, this show, a lot of the time. Like the Back to the Pilot episode that Brian and Stewie did. But this one does it too, to a degree. It's just brilliant. It is practically the perfect version of this show. And I don't disagree with other people putting it at number 1, but I put at number 1 the next season's opening episode, and then there were fewer. Season 9's opener, big hour-long murder mystery. They're all of these characters, all of these side characters that you never really expected to see together in the one episode, all came together, and it was so ridiculous. They came together at James Wood's house, and then he got murdered. And I think he didn't genuinely stay murdered, but that was one of the things about this episode that I loved. In Family Guy, there's never, no matter what they do, they can destroy the world, they can do whatever they want, they can kill Stewie, they can kill Brian, it doesn't matter, it never sticks. But a lot of side characters who we know well enough, like Muriel, stay dead after dying in this episode. Plus, I've always loved the actual Agatha Christie novel and film from 1945, And Then There Were None, and anything that is a take on that style, that murder mystery shut-in style, like Clue, the actual Cluedo film. I love anything like that to pieces. So Family Guy doing an episode like that, I was really hyped for it. I remember watching it as it premiered here in the UK, at least. As soon as it happened, because I saw it coming up and was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. And it actually lived up to every kind of expectation I had. It did everything I wanted to do a take on this genre. And it actually had lasting consequences, which I was amazed about. I thought it would just be like, oh, next episode, no, they're just all alive again. But no, it actually all paid off really well at the end of this episode, and I loved it to pieces. So for me, that is the best episode of Family Guy. That's the one that anytime people say, oh, you want to watch Family Guy, I go, let's stick on season 9 so we can watch that one immediately, because I just love it to pieces. And I do think it's pretty obvious there from my list. Family Guy season openers are always something to get super hyped for. God damn. I hope you guys agree with this list. You might not. In fact, it's very unlikely you won't, because there's hundreds of episodes of Family Guy, so nobody's top 10 is going to be the same. But let me know what your favorite episodes are, and if there are any episodes from like the most recent season. I'm not sure I've seen all of them. So let me know what your favorite episode is from the most recent season, because I should catch up on that as well. But I'm pretty sure they're not totally past their best, but it feels like 6 to 10 were the real high points, yeah. Subscribe.